Thank you, Mr. Deputy President. Good afternoon, colleagues senators. Mr. Deputy, I rise to make my contribution on the resolution before us to borrow for capital and current expenditure to support the Youth Economy Project. But before I do so, I just beg leave of you, just for about 2 minutes, to say thank you to my colleague senators for their well wishes. Thank you to the Parliamentarians body for recognizing the work of young people in government and for electing me as their vice president for Parliamentarians for the Caribbean as it relates to the gender equality portfolio. Mr. Vice President, we all know that to whom much is given, much is expected, and so I vow to the people of St. Lucia to do my best to represent the interests of women, girls, and disenfranchised groups. Mr. President, I also want to lend my voice to that of my colleague senators to congratulate teachers on World Teachers Day, and of course a lot of the teachers who have been very instrumental in my upbringing, and they are very aware of the challenges that I faced as a child growing up, especially Teacher Joseph of J.N.O. Tiroche and Teacher Carol Valse, who also happens to be his sister, two teachers who were very instrumental in my time at the Forest Year Methodist Combined School. I want to say thank you to teachers and thank you for your dedication and your work to help us get here. It is no surprise, Mr. Deputy, that our Prime Minister has already allocated an increase for teachers. They did receive it in terms of their teaching resources, because he recognized that sometimes these very same teachers have to put their hands in their pockets. And I remember going to school and not being able to afford the $1 a day for the school feeding program, and some of these teachers were able to pay that on my behalf. So I want to say a very special thank you to our teachers. Further, we are all wearing pink. I did mention it, but again, I just want to make an appeal to those who may have missed the Senate sitting earlier this morning, but for us all women and girls to ensure that on a regular basis we get the mammograms so we can perhaps detect very early if we would be diagnosed with breast cancer. The entire month of October is recognized as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Mr. Deputy, the motion before us, which speaks of borrowing of government from the special funds resources of the Caribbean Development Bank's Development Fund of US $6.276 million to support the youth economy. Now, Mr. Deputy, we've come to this honorable chamber many times to debate the youth economy, whether it be the implementation of the Youth Economy Agency, the Youth Economy Act, or monies borrowed to facilitate supporting our young people. I recall the Prime Minister saying a big thank you to the people of the Republic of China of Taiwan for their contribution and the initial injection of funds towards supporting the Brainchild, which was the flagship promise of the St. Lucia Labour Party. This SLP campaigned heavily on ensuring that we were going to prioritize young people. Why was it so important for us to do so, Mr. Deputy President? It's because we recognize that majority of our population is made up of young people. Majority of our population is also made up of young persons between the ages of 10 to 35. And it was as if our Prime Minister, Honorable Philip J.P. had the foresight, and I'm not saying he predicted that the pandemic would come, but although he campaigned on reinstating the One Laptop Per Child program, and we were dealt the COVID blow where our children had to eventually use the laptops, the Prime Minister, in his wisdom, did see the need for us to invest in our young people because he realized the challenges that they faced. Now, I'm giving this backstory to really help us understand why it is necessary for us to continue to support young people in St. Lucia. Mr. President, I remember going to South Louis Community College. I went to DTEMS, and there was a young man back then who wanted to develop an app. He wanted to do some grocery app in the Caribbean, more of an e-commerce platform. And he had this brilliant idea he shared with us, but he was only at South Louis. Could not afford to get the support so he can develop that app. And of course, his family did not have that economic standing, financial standing to support him. It so happened that maybe I think it was about maybe a year and a half later, we learned that some other business person was able to develop that app. And of course, he was discouraged because his idea could not have seen development. Mr. Vice President, the situation that we are faced with in St. Lucia is that our young people, like this young man in St. Lucia, who would have gone to South Louis, who would have had a business idea, would need to have established a savings with a bank or a lending institution for a period of about 2 years to establish a credit line so they can get funding for their business ideas. Now, Mr. President, when you think of not being able to afford, not having an aunt or uncle, or not knowing somebody in society to be able to guarantee a loan for you, it would make it almost impossible for someone coming from a poorer socioeconomic background to be able to get funding to support their business idea. Now, when you go to the development banks, they have a checklist of items that you may never be able to achieve, and probably until you're close to being retired. As a result, Prime Minister Philip J. Pierre said that he wanted to make this easier for young people. Coming from the COVID-19 pandemic especially, our young people had a lot of brilliant business ideas. Some of them lost their jobs. Over 15,000 persons we know from the hospitality sector were displaced. A lot of them were young people. And so it was even very challenging for them to get back into gainful employment because, we were trying to recover from COVID, where the tourism sector is concerned. And so some of them developed a lot of social media business ideas. Some of them realized that they had skills and talents in doing nails, and I got my nails done by a young lady. Some of them decided that, they could be able to do weave and makeup and brilliant creative ideas, but they have no financial support. They have no capital. They have nothing to invest in. What the Youth Economy Act has now been able to do was allow for a youth economy agency to have been developed only about 7 months. Only about 7 months from as early as March of this year, to be able to provide easier opportunities, easier access to finance, easier access to training, easier access to mentorship, and of course, easier access to marketing. The youth economy has now been able to relate to us, and I know colleague senators before have touched on that over 200 persons, 200 young persons are beneficiaries of the youth economy grant. Yes, over 1,000 applications have been received. 200 persons so far have received funds from the youth economy, Mr. President. And Mr. President, do you know how much that has amounted to? That has amounted to, in a little of 7 months, over $1 million distributed by a St. Lucia Labour Party administration to be able to sustain and allow our young people to sustain their enterprises. And then we are being told by the Prime Minister that another 100 applications have been fully reviewed, and very soon we will see that this 200 will now be increased to 300. Mr. President, yes, the St. Lucia Labour Party is investing in our young people. Yes, the St. Lucia Labour Party has put measures in place to ensure that young people have an equal opportunity. And yes, the Labour Party is not saying if you were a supporter of Flurbo, a supporter of Blue Wave, that we will not support you. We have made the Youth Economy Agency accessible. The Youth Economy Agency is on the chaussee, an area that oftentimes people say is a no-walk zone. The Prime Minister has brought this enterprise to young people to make it more easily accessible to them. Now, I want to know, what is the problem with investing in our young people, Mr. President? I want to know, what is the United Workers' Party's issue with young people? Now, in one breath, they will say that they support the efforts of young people, and in another breath, they will say that this cannot work. Mr. President, it seems that the United Workers' Party is an enemy of the youth, and I will tell you why. Although the colleague
Mr. President,
senator,
I stand on a point of order.
Sorry,
I think,
Senator Fede, hold on, let me acknowledge you.
yeah.
What's your point of order?
Grossly reckless and irresponsible, misleading the House by stating that the United Workers' Party is an enemy of the youth. I mean, what are we doing? That cannot be accepted. We're not saying that we're against young people. If there's one thing we're against is how you're managing the program and how you're
Mr. President, I
elevating the
never said
rhetoric
so.
against elevating the rhetoric and delivering very little.
Just now, please proceed, Senator Jawahir.
yes, I said it seems that the United Workers' Party is an enemy of the youth. But if you want me to clarify, I will clarify. The United Workers' Party, the senator before me did speak and say that it seems that the United Workers' Party has something against young people and that young people are criminals. The senator on the other side stood and said that is not true. But the senator never stated that United Workers' Party said. She only implied. Because it was the same United Workers' Party whose leader took to a platform, took to the media and said that single mothers were the bearers of criminals. Single mothers bearing children. Aren't you against young people? But let's go a little further. Since you want to open that door, I will walk in it.
Yes.
The United Workers' Party has made it an issue of attacking young people. And I want to make a document of the House, a news clipping that went out about me earlier today. Mr. President, the United Workers' Party stood on a platform. The United Workers' Party stood on a platform on Sunday. The United Workers' Party stood on a platform on Sunday. And the leader of opposition business was hosting the meeting at the time. And he invited Guy Joseph to stand right next to him. And you know what he did? And I was waiting for the leader of government business to come to talk about that health and security levy. And I'm that leader of opposition business, and I'm tying it to you, Mr. Deputy. I was waiting for him to come and talk about health and security levy, and I want to tell the people of St. Lucia, this is something we need to be very concerned about.
That's right.
The United Workers' Party, Guy Joseph, and the leader of opposition business stood on a platform in Bellevue and called me a liar. Why did they call me a liar? And I believe it is an attack on young people. I don't feel personally that I need to defend myself, but I think young people need to be defended. They said that I am being hired by government. I took an oath and I am lying to the people about the health and security levy. And they also said that this is what you get for putting little children to do big people work. And you know what the leader of opposition did? He was clapping. But I want Guy Joseph and the leader of the opposition to know that no matter what they can, it's like you're not learning your lesson. Some time ago, they had a big row with the NYC saying that NYC people believe that they're supposed to get benefits. The largest population of the country. They attacked and then they said that is what you get for putting young people to do big people business, because the United Workers' Party does not believe in the youth. It's as if the youth is the enemy of the UWP. But it's this same young person who is now being recognized by regional entities. This same young person is given a seat at the table to speak on behalf of young people. How many young people has the UWP on their side in the political sphere, sitting around the table, sitting in parliament, whether it be in the lower house or in the upper house? You cannot talk about your contribution for young people. You cannot talk. And Mr. President, when he was referring to young people, he spoke of the tourism sector. And I just want to briefly touch upon that. And he spoke of the hotel in ancillary. Mr. Vice President, that same member is very aware that ancillary has 14 Airbnbs, registered Airbnbs. You know what he did? And speaking of young people and development of young people, he did not seek to sustain or provide support for these Airbnbs. Instead, he wants to come today and talk about a hotel that is 90% complete. You were in the position. You did not pave one road. What were your development opportunities in tourism and for youth in ancillary. You could not even do that. But you want to come and start and talk about what this SLP is not doing. I want to know what it is that young people have done to the United Workers' Party. Mr. President, this resolution, this borrowing of funds, it does a lot for our young people. It hurts my heart again, Senator KJ, and I have to agree with you. It hurts when you see you come and you hear crying for ways to reduce crime. You are here crying for ways to provide more jobs. You are here crying to ensure that young people finally have a seat at the table. But what is the United Workers' Party's problem with the youth? Look, today they want to go and say, oh, I have a contract with a company. I am a marketing professional. I have a master's in strategic communication, and I have not disobeyed any part of the Constitution of St. Lucia that would prevent me from going into business with any entity. But they are trying to grasp at straws to say that I am using my political office to gain favor. Let me tell you in case people have forgotten what the United Workers' Party did. I remember I was being invited to sit on a political platform. I just sat there as a show of support for young people. They called the person that was hiring me, and guess what happened? I was fired. The first I was on the platform sitting on a Wednesday evening. Thursday, the Star newspaper interviews me. Saturday, big and bold on the Star front page, is this peer's weapon for guy destruction. A few days later, I was given walking papers because somebody from the United Workers' Party called and said I should not be allowed to work. I should not be allowed to eat. Young people should not be allowed to work, should not be allowed to eat. Guess what? I make less than $2,000 a month coming here, giving my life, my sweat and sacrifice to ensure that young people have a voice in this chamber, Mr. Vice President. And I will not be swayed. I will not be distracted. And as my Prime Minister says, my eyes are on the prize. I will speak for the young people of St. Lucia. When the United Workers' Party is able to do the same and ensure that there are resources available for young people, tell them come and talk to me. I will be happy to engage them. But Mr. President, like I said, this will reduce in crime and violence, similarly to us getting the resources from the health and security levy to be able to put towards the police force, to be able to put towards the fire service, to be able to put towards agencies that will secure our people. But you'll have a problem with everything. You'll have a problem with security. You'll have a problem with youth. We give money to the fire service. That's not good enough for the United Workers' Party. We give children laptops. Because you do not believe in young people. You don't believe that we need to empower people. You insist that young people or people need to be coming and begging politicians every time. Mr. President, I am not a parliamentary rep, but yes, people from the community might know me and they know me to be a spokesperson for the party. Mr. President, it is so heartbreaking for a man who is 40-something years old, for him to have to come to me and ask me for $50 to buy cooking gas. I would hold my chest, Mr. President. You know why? Because I know for a man it is difficult for him to even make that approach. But the United Workers' Party, they want you to feed out of their hands. A St. Lucia Labour Party is saying, I will teach you how to fish. I will teach you to be able to go and get and purchase that own cooking gas for yourself. I will not have you to be dependent on politicians, because smart politicians, that's how they work. But the United Workers' Party did not have the foresight to do so. And of course, Mr. President, I noted that there is the promotion of gender equality, because in this youth economy, in this resolution, when the Prime Minister presented it, there will be a social and gender specialist that will be hired. So at least persons from all spectrums will not be left behind, especially our women. But Mr. President, I really just wanted to make a very quick intervention on this and say that unwaveringly I support the passage of this resolution. So the Minister of Finance can borrow $6 million to ensure that we continue to sustain the business ideas of our young people.